What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpalia sitting on the couch, making some money investing in fractional real estate online. As usual, today I'm going to be doing some due diligence on the Reading. This is Mogul's latest offering. It's a 7-bedroom, 6-bathroom pad split in Decatur, Georgia. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I bought a few other Mogul pad splits in Decatur, Georgia. So I'll be able to give you a little bit of insight into how those have been performing for me. So this property is the Reading. They mentioned that it's similar to the Chestnut, which we're going to look at that one as well. That actually, I believe, had one additional bedroom. But, they mentioned it's the same seller. It'll be similar finishes. And so I'm going to show you the pictures to that one. They mentioned, it's, 5 ensuite bedrooms. There's, TVs in every room, ample tenant parking, and you notice they don't say anything about proximity to public transit, which is something they usually mention. I think it's because it's not very close, but it does look like there's a bunch of parking. It's saying this is a proven stronghold for workforce housing. I think it's an interesting choice of words, but it is there are definitely a lot of other pad splits in this market that have and the ones that I own at least are doing well. 8.16% is their projected yield for the first year, and then 12 and 12 for average yield over hold and IRR, 12 and change. They were offering $176,000 in equity. As of right now, $120,000 remaining. Let's refresh that because I don't want to give you bad info. $120,408 remaining. Their purchase price is $355,000. I'm going to look at that from a couple different angles. Looking at the comps, but also looking at the other pad splits that we bought in this market. Let's get some of the easy stuff out of the way first, though, so I can close some tabs. So this is the FEMA flood map. Looks good to me. It's located right here. And, there's no flood zones that are, it looks like we're in the, just an X zone and not shaded. So happy about that. So looking at the crime map, this is about almost 2 full months of crime. And you can see it's really spread out in order to fill the map. When you zoom in right into our neighborhood, only a couple things in the last month, a couple incidents. This is as far as for pad splits, especially in the Atlanta market, this is a really good crime map. I know I said that last time too. So, I was pretty happy with this. The only exception to that is there was a shooting over here. Now, it's not in the neighborhood. It appears that this is on a main road. And when I opened this up, they mentioned, a woman was killed in the first of 3 connected shootings by one suspect across DeKalb County. So, obviously that's not great to have a shooting so close by. By the sounds of that, it made me think that they actually caught the person. I'm not sure. But again, also, this doesn't look like it's in this neighborhood, right? It's on what appears to be more of a main road. So I don't know. I don't know how much it really says about the neighborhood. It did make me want to look at the neighborhood scout crime map, and this is the area right here. So you can see, this is I'm not sure, it's one of these 2 shadings, so it's sort of middle of the road as far as dangerousness goes in Decatur, Georgia, right? Like you can see there's definitely much darker shaded areas than this. So makes me feel pretty good about the location, even though there was that one shooting that showed up on the spot crime. I mean, whenever you have a densely populated area, you're going to have some level of crime. And like I said, for pad splits, it's a much better map than we've seen in some of the other places, right? The as far as like the grading both on Neighborhood Scout and the number of crimes showing up on spot crime. All right, let's see. Okay, that's one of the comps. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. This is the map that I want to show you as far as the closest transit. These are bus stops, and this closest one right here looks like it's a 14-minute walk, 0.7 miles. I don't know how many people are going to do that. You know, it's especially, you know, during the summer in the Atlanta area. I can't imagine a lot of people that are renting a room here are planning to be walking to the bus stop. You know, I don't, but it does look like there's ample parking, just like they said, ample tenant parking. Oh, here we go. What happened? Right here. Nope. We're having some good luck here. Yeah, this one. So you can see there's this pad off to the side and here. So like, I think you probably park 2 cars there, 2 cars there, maybe another one on the side. And I'm actually not sure if there's street parking, but if not, and if you need more parking here, you know, it looks like there's room to add an additional pad. I don't see any cars parked on. Oh, no, I think that is one. That looks like maybe you've got a car parked on the street there. So if street parking is allowed as well, I mean, it seems like, you know, no question that you've got plenty of parking for, you know, the 7 bedrooms. This is for the comps too. So let's get into the valuation. So, you know, looking on Zillow thinks it's worth $234,600. That's because this was just sold. Let's see. To the current owner who's selling it to us. Yeah, you know, sold last month, less than a month ago, for $235,000. Well, that's because this seller is somebody who is buying these, renovating them, and then selling them to us. Obviously, you know, it's a $120,000 spread. What are we getting for that, right? It is, yeah, that's why I wanted to show you this. This is the one that they said is by the same seller, and it should be a similar renovation. So you can see, you know, it appears they're doing just a real, at least a full cosmetic rehab. I don't think that they actually told us anything about HVAC, electrical, any of that. Yeah, they did not. You know, which is always good to know. Oh, opened up the wrong one. But like, you know, it's not what you normally think of as like sort of cheaper landlord finishes. I mean, they did what looks like a pretty nice job, although I hate seeing stuff like this where your backsplash doesn't line up perfectly with the counter, but that's me being nitpicky. It overall does look like it's a, you know, fully renovated interior. Obviously I don't think that cost them $120,000, but they also added 3 bathrooms and created, you know, 7 bedrooms. So they turned 2 more rooms into bedrooms. This one, I don't think there's a floor plan on the Chestnut either. Yeah, even though, yeah, I think this is after the renovation, but they didn't give us a floor plan there. You can see on this listing it says floor plan coming soon. If you've watched any of my other videos, I haven't been super impressed with any of the floor plans that they've showed us anyway, right? There's often just some inconsistencies, or they're tough to figure out what exactly is going on. But clearly there's a significant amount of work going into this from the time it was purchased at $235. You know, but I always like to just look at these. Realtor thinks it's worth $243. Redfin, I think, thinks it's worth $251. But I looked at the comps they provided as well. And let's look at the map first. So this is the map of the comps, and you can see, you know, this is pretty spread out, right? They had to go, oh, I'm sorry, no, this is the map of, I'm going to get to this one in a minute. This is a map of the comps, and they're actually all pretty close, right? This is and you can see when I hover over here, the little red dots show up on the map. But so the first one is the subject property. And so you can see the second comp I'm going to show you really close. What are we doing here? Yeah, the third one, not, you know, all of these are close enough that I think, okay, it's not crazy that we're using these as comps. So this is that first comp that I was looking at. And you can see this one was bought at $182,000 last year and just sold. So this is like another flip, right? And so I've noticed this only a couple of videos ago. Did I notice that that's what they're doing when it looks like they're pulling comps that are significantly different? It looks like what they're doing is pulling these comps that were fully renovated I think this is the one that wasn't. No. This is another one sold for 197,000, and then this did sell again. Why isn't that showing? 345. I'm pretty sure I already saw that sale. Yeah, it did sell for 345, and then this is the only one of the comps that wasn't a flip. But it seems, we don't have a size for this one. They did show it on our list of comps, though. So even though we're a little bit more spread out than I'd like to be, I think these are all really reasonable, especially because two of them that they picked are ones that were just bought and sold recent renovations and actually show that there's, that delta isn't crazy, right? Because these other ones that were flips were, bought with, under 200,000 and then sold in the threes. So, I feel pretty good about our valuation there. Oh yeah. So the next thing I want to look at is, okay, so how are my other properties in this market doing? I own the Mafee, and so, which is 7 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, so significantly less bathrooms, but the same number of bedrooms. This one has been, they had projected 10% return, and most of last year we're tracking for that, but I think at the end of the year, ended up with a dip so that the annual number was actually 9.4%, so just under 10%. As far as I'm concerned, this performed as I expected it to. But again, they were projecting 10% on this. On the one that's we're looking at today, the Reading, they're projecting 8. And then this year so far, 10.74, 10.73, we're right in line. We're actually a little bit above projections. And then the Andres, which is the other one that I own a piece of, and like I said, I don't own a piece of the Chestnut, but it looks like it might not even be live yet anyway. So even though they compared it to that one, I think these two it's better to see how the history has gone. Ended last year at 10.2%. So far this year, it looks like we're doing even better. So there's clearly demand in that part of town, or in that area, that submarket. But a couple of things I wanted to point out. So the Mafee, which was 7 bedrooms but less bathrooms, we only paid $300,000 for this versus $355,000. Now getting 4 additional. No, I think this one had no en-suites, actually, because it was, all of them are sharing bathrooms. So I think getting 5 en-suites, there's a lot of value there. So, going from $300,000 to $355,000, I can see that. I think it makes a lot of sense. That's the Mafee still. The next one was the Andres, right? We only paid $315,000 for this. This actually had an extra bedroom too, but again, no en-suites here. So it seems like maybe this Andres was a bit of a better deal, but it makes sense, right? Because we had higher projections, and so I don't think I think they're right. We're not going to get that. We're not going to get the same kind of yield that we have on the Mafee or on the Andres because of the difference in pricing, and there's more bedrooms on the Andres. I don't know why we couldn't do just as well as the Mafee, right? Because that's the other thing that I mapped out here. So let's see. This is the Mafee. I guess location wise, right? So this is all the way over here is the subject property, the Reading. The Mafee's over here, and let's see. Yeah, this is the Andres, right? Is that right? Oh, here we go. The Andres is Columbia Drive. Yeah, so this one here is the Andres. So that's relatively close. And then this one here is the Chestnut, which I don't have numbers for that. But so the Andres, pretty close. But this is 8 bedrooms. We're less. So, yeah, I think this is probably a little less comparable looking at, rental rates. But they have so many in this market, and they're all managed by the same this same manager, that I just have to imagine their manager has a real good sense of telling them, okay, what we should be able to do here. So I don't know. I think it makes sense that we have a lower yield because, the closest property being the Andres, we paid, let's see. All right, now I'm getting confused. You can tell it's a little bit late. Yeah, we paid less for it, and we had more bedrooms. And so even though there was more en-suites, you'd think we'd yield a little bit worse than this one. And that's what it looks like. So I think that makes sense. I do also always like to check the Padsplit calculator, though, just because, any additional info I can do when I'm doing this due diligence, I like to be able to understand. And let's view the breakdown. So this says, okay, effective gross income, $59,000, and then we have to, subtract the platform fees. And so that gets us to about $51,000 or $50,500 roughly. Versus what they're projecting here is $57,000 in income. So you can see they're expecting to do a little bit better than what the Padsplit tool thinks. I think with it being a fresh renovation, I think, with their experience in that market, that it's perfectly reasonable to believe their number, even though it's a little bit higher than the number here. Well, I mean, it's actually more than 10%, but I still, because of how much experience they have in this market, I tend to trust them. Before I forget, please like and subscribe. In the description of this video, I have links to all the places where I'm currently investing in fractional real estate online. Please do your own due diligence on all those platforms and on any properties that you see me talking about. Just because I do or don't like a specific property doesn't mean that you should. We have different risk preferences. We have different time horizons for investing, different amounts of money to invest. And so you want to make sure that it's the right decision for you. Don't just do it because I'm buying some of these. I get asked a lot in the Discord, hey, are you buying this one? Or are you not buying this one? I just want to share my thoughts on the properties. Whether or not I buy a particular one, I think shouldn't have a lot of bearing on whether or not you're going to. Especially ones like this where I already own 2 other Padsplits in this immediate area. So I'm probably not going to buy this because of that. Oh, I did mention the Discord, right, that people are asking there. There's a link to that in the description of this video. It's just a place where, several, 270 plus people now have joined. We're just talking about fractional real estate investing. There's no cost. It's not a sales funnel. I will never DM you trying to sell you anything. If you get DMs from someone who looks like me after joining and they're trying to sell you something, that person is a scammer. Please report them. But anyway, yeah. So the reason for, inviting you there is so that you can share, some of your insight, your due diligence, your knowledge. Also ask questions. In the Mogul thread, there's a few people that are very productive sharing, who are clearly looking at a lot of these properties in more detail than I am, right? So if you're ever looking for more info, something beyond what I'm talking about, if you look in there, there's quite often, some links shared or some sort of info about how some of the other Mogul properties have leased up so far, or just different things like that. More info about the area. Some people are sharing some AI generated research that they're doing, all sorts of stuff. So, please feel free to join that, check that out, contribute, ask questions. But so overall, I mean, this one, I feel much better about the valuation than I have on a lot of these deals. I mean, I think it makes, based on the comps that they provided, and just understanding what we paid for other properties in this market, both from a revenue side and a valuation side, I feel good about this one. If I didn't already own the two other units in this market, I'd probably buy a piece of this. But the other thing too, I have still been hesitant to buy any of them. I already own a couple where they're buying it, it's being renovated and will be listed as a pad split. I want to see how those turn out as far as like are they able to hit their projections before I, go really crazy buying a bunch more of these. My main goal at the moment for all of the fractional real estate platforms is just doing research, experimenting, figuring out which ones work, which ones don't, sharing that process, sharing the info, and not necessarily, I still don't have, the majority of my net worth isn't tied up in any of these fractional sites. I'm still own mortgages in real life, and that I think will probably continue to be my my preferred investment strategy for a while. Well, that and real properties, but I was slowly moving to owner finance mortgages being the main asset that I hold before I discovered fractional real estate. And so I think it'll be a while before I am dumping too much money onto any of these platforms. I was pretty hopeful early on and thought that, within a few years, I'd just have, moved everything to here. There's been just too many problems with several of the platforms that it makes me want to just take a more slow and measured approach. And hopefully that's what everybody else is doing too, right? Like I hope nobody's just sticking their whole net worth on, especially not on any one platform. But even in fractional real estate in general, right? I think there's a good argument to be made that whenever you're in an industry that's really in its infancy, which I think we still are here, that you just want to be careful, right? I mean, this industry could get regulated away tomorrow, having some sort of issues come up that make it so that it's much more difficult. And so, I don't know. I don't know why I'm, going on and on about the cautionary side of this today. I do think sometimes, I think there's a ton of advantages to investing in fractional real estate. I'm very excited about the industry. I'm putting money to work on several platforms, but I just want to make sure that people always understand that, there is risk involved here, right? I'm not getting those 10% yields and hopefully some appreciation on top of it, with no risk, right? Like that's not what's happening. The reason that we're able to get good deals on these properties and is because, we're early adopters. We're, trying something new, and over time, I think we've already seen it, right? Yields on the Redding or yields and returns on the Redding are lower than on the Mafi and lower than on the Andres. Like I think over time we're going to see you're not going to get as great of as outsized returns. I don't think. I mean, I think it's possible, as interest rates go down, some of these deals we're buying today could end up doing better. But the older ones, I think that would be the case too. So I think, there could be a continued decline in yields as there's more competition for these properties. Man, I got really rambly today. I'm sorry about that. It's late. I think I'm going to be done. If you're buying the Redding, let me know. Put it in the comments or jump in the Discord and share. Tell me what gets you excited about this one. If you decided not to buy it and it's for a reason I didn't talk about, please share that too, right? Because I mean, there's always things that could be wrong with a property that I missed. I'm obviously not doing, as thorough a due diligence as I do, like when I'm really digging in and going to buy myself. Although I try to, but they're just putting out properties so fast, and it's tough to keep up with them. So, like I said before, at a certain point, I'm just going to actually only do them either once in a while or just do highlights on these. I'm not really sure. Anyway, until next time, I'm just going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.